Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today we're back to working on this drive shaft that we're going to make for the lead attachment that goes on my Kearney Trecker milling machine. As I have mentioned in previous videos, when I got the machine, it was missing a few parts, so hey, we're making them. And we've got the shaft has actually already been turned out. I did that in the previous episode. But what we're going to be doing today is cutting some splines on either end of this. And there is a 6-spline pattern that a gear is going to fit up on one end and then a coupler is going to fit up on the other end, and that's what's going to drive this lead attachment for cutting spiral gears over on my dividing head and my milling machine. So let me show you a little bit about this spline that we're going to be cutting, and we're going to go get set up and do this over on the horizontal mill. So first off, here's the shaft we're going to be working with, and again, we got to cut splines on both sides of this. Where again, that's the gear that fits up on there. You can see it's a 6-spline pattern. It's going to fit up on there. Now the spline looks kind of like this when it's done. You can see the individual cuts in there. This is a kind of a unique spline though. Maybe you can see a little bit better on that there. But it's a little bit unique spline in that instead of cutting this with a single cutter of this profile, I don't have a single cutter with this particular profile in there. So we're going to use just a regular straight milling cutter to come in here. Actually, we're going to use a pair of them to start with. But if you look up on the top, we're cutting out the negative part here. But on the first one, you got 2 parallel cuts on either side. It's almost like a keyway. It's almost like 6 keys on this thing. But instead of putting a piece of key stock in, we're actually going to have the keys milled into the part. And to accomplish that, what we're going to do is I'm going to set up over here on the horizontal mill with a pair of cutters. I got a spacer in there. It's a 1/4-inch spacer in there. And that's going to fit straight down over that slot, and it will cut 2 parallel cuts straight down on either side. And we're going to do that. This is 6 splines. We're going to do that 6 times. We'll rotate the part on the dividing head, do it 6 times, and that's going to leave a kind of an area in the middle here that has to be cut out. After we've cut them all out, we'll come back in with another cut that just goes right down the middle and cleans out that waste in there that we need to cut out. So it's actually going to be 2 different trips around on the dividing head to get this done. If we had a single cutter that could do this, it would make it a lot easier. But honestly, I think looking at these parts, I'm pretty sure that they machine these exactly how I'm about to do it in 2 operations, because you can actually see down in the root of this the little flats that come out and on either side, and they came in and just cut the middle out. So I think that they probably did this exact same way that I'm going to do it. And regardless, that's how we're going to do it, because that's what we have cutters for. Now, couple of comments here. You know, because we're going to be using these wheel cutters coming in, we'll bring in to the bottom, comes in roughly just to that right there, but it's going to actually cut through this little collar, and that's just like the original was, and then it'll just kind of sweep up in the back. And then over here, same thing, it'll go into a certain place, so just kind of sweep up into the back. On this side, really all we need is enough for this coupler to come up on there to engage that, and then the rest of this area here is an area that will ride on the bronze bushing. It's just a bearing surface. So there you go, kind of see the game plan. Let's go over to the milling machine, dividing head, get everything set up, and we'll get ready to cut these parts. All right, we're going to start by tearing down this other setup. Actually, we're not going to tear it completely down. I think this is the right arbor. I needed to swap out the cutter here with the correct cutters, and to do that, we'll start by loosening that bolt. I want to loosen up the overarm supports so they can come out now. We'll pull that arbor support out off over that bearing, and we'll loosen up here and take the arbor support off. set it down here. And I'm going to retract these overarms just to get them out of my way for the moment. All right, pull our bearing support out. And we had an involute cutter on here for the last cut. Last time we used this, I'm going to take this off. I'll put it back over in the cabinet. So next we're going to put our wheel cutters here on. These are 3/16 of an inch thick, and I think they're 4 inches in diameter. But what's important is these are a matched set. They're the exact same diameter. They are designed to run together. And I'll start by putting the first one on here. Now that little key in between there is 1/4 of an inch thick, so I have a 1/4 inch spacer here. They'll go between these two, and then we'll put the other one on right next to it. We're actually going to be making 2 cuts simultaneously and have that little gap right there in the middle. And we'll go ahead and put some spacers back on the end. Put our bearing back on here, and we'll tighten it back up. And put a little oil on this bearing. So let me show you how I'm setting up here, and I'm cheating big time. And I've got this shaft that has got the same spline on this end. So instead of going over here and trying to measure things out, I just put this shaft in here, and we've gone in here and centered up on that one and gone down to the depth that it's in there. And I'm just using this as a template because we're wanting to cut the exact same spline that is on this end of the shaft. So guys, that's how I did it. Cheating big time, but hey, take shortcuts when you can, when they make sense, and this is a good place where you can take a shortcut and get it done. So we've got the dividing head centered up in this direction. We got our height set right because it's going to be the same diameter, same depth, everything else. Now the length is going to be different. I'll have to change that, but that's not going to change these other dimensions. So I'm going to go ahead and lock my tables down on the in and out here, as well as on the up and down, and we should be good to go. Well, I think we are ready to make our first cut. I've got my speed set up here at about, according to the calculations, it needs to be about 100 RPMs. We're on 96, which was the closest I had on my selector over there. I've got it set up where we should come in about to where the line is right there, and I've got a dog on the table where it should automatically stop. And then we'll back out and index it around. And I have my dividing head up for 6 divisions right now, which is going to be 6 turns. I'm on a 33 hole plate. It's 6 turns and then 22 holes. And I'll have to do that 6 times, and of course we'll be cutting both sides of that at one time. I am cutting in steel, so I'm going to put a little cutting oil on here, and I'll probably just kind of hit that a little bit as we go. My feed rate right now is 7 5/8 inches per minute. We may play around with that depending on how it sounds. Let's go for it. We're gonna make our first cut. I'm gonna back off that feed rate a little bit. I'm on 4.5 inches per minute. We may speed it back up, but let's just start out kind of conservative. It is cutting, and we should be about to stop right about there. There we go. And I'll come out. Let me kind of take a look at that. That looks beautiful. All right, so now we're going to turn our dividing head. And again, it's 6 turns and 22 holes. I have my little scepter here set up for 22 holes. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 22 right there. We'll go ahead and move that around. We'll lock our dividing head and feed in for the next cut. Put a little oil on there and feed on in again. All right. Make our turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 22. Make our next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 22. And this should be the last pass on this first cut. All right, I want you to take a look at where we're at. We've basically cut the tops of the splines, but if you look down in that bottom, we kind of have a little V. That needs to be a flat bottom. So what I'm going to do is we're going to turn the dividing head 1/12 of a turn, which is going to be 3 turns and 11 holes, half of what we did a while ago. And I'm going to take the cutter, I'm going to take one cutter completely off. We're going to put the spacer on the back side of this cutter, which should move it over exactly 1/4 of an inch, and it should be running right down the center. And we'll make another series of cuts, and all should be well. So let's get everything set up for that. All right, let's change this cutter out. First, we'll loosen that up. There we go. Slide that off. Now we'll take our arbor support off. And again, what I want to do is we're going to take one cutter completely off. And we'll take our 1/4 inch spacer out, our cutter off. We'll put the 1/4 inch spacer behind it, which will move that cutter over 1/4 of an inch, which should put it right in that space in between the two cutters. And we're not going to put the second cutter back on this time. Put our bearing back on here. Finger tight that. Put our arbor support back on. Pull it back in place here. And we'll tighten up the tops. Okay. And don't forget to tighten this up. Now, if you look at that position of that cutter, it should be right down the center now. But we need to roll this over. I'm going to count 11 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to go into that hole right there. But I need to make 3 turns first. So 1, 2, 3, and 11 right there. All right, now if you look, we're right down the center. Let me just get you where you can see that. All right, so you can see we're going right down the middle of that. We're going to make 6 passes. Just like we did before, we'll go back to indexing on the 6-hole pattern, which will be 6 turns, 22 holes. And we'll just go to the same stop we were at before, and that should just clear out that center section. So let's knock it out. There we go. And we'll do our 6 turns and 22 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 22. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2. So you can see what we got here. I'm going to take some emery cloth. I've already been kind of massaging this a little bit, just trying to get those burrs off of it. Let's see if we can get this to fit. Look at there. Look at there. That's exactly what we wanted. First time out of the pass, setting up on that existing arbor really helped out because we nailed it the first time, and that's a nice fit. I don't have really any play in there at all. It's tight, but it slides on and off, so I think we're good. All right, we got one more set to cut on the other side, so we're going to flip this thing around and do that side as well. All right, we are set up for the other side. I've just flipped my part around. On this side, we basically just need to come in so that we've got the bottom clearing the back side of the shoulder. It's going to come through this collar, this flange just around here, and it'll come out back in here. That's just like, again, the original. It's just the way it's going to be. no big deal. We just need to make sure we have good splines on the front, and that's where that gear's going to fit up on. So I think we're ready to cut them. Let's do it. Start up our spindle there, put a little oil in here, turn our feed on. I got a stop right here, so it's going to stop it in the same place each time. Cutting in. Boom. All right. And we'll come out. And we will turn. 6 turns and 22. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 22. All right, let me get it set up and we'll cut the centers out. And we're ready to roll here on the next ones. On those centers, let's cut them on out. Three, four, five, six. And just like that, I think we have our splines done. Gear fits up on both sides just fine. All we need now is to get our bearing housing cast and machined, and I think we can put this on that lead attachment and be ready to go to town, maybe cutting some spiral gears. That's the game plan. But some 6-sided splines. There you go. That's how we do it. Well, there we go, guys. Here's the process on cutting some splines. I hope you enjoyed that. This is a job where the horizontal milling machine really shines and really kind of comes into play as being the ideal tool to do something like this. This job could have been done over on a vertical mill, no doubt about it, but you would have required a lot of offsets. To get those 2 parallel cuts, we would have had to make, instead of 3 trips or 2 trips around on the dividing head, it had been 3 trips around, and we would have had to offset the shaft on either side and then do the middle. So there would have been a lot of moving the table around to do things. And the way we did this one, we didn't have to move the table at all. We just moved our cutters. So it worked out really well. Well, there you go, guys. That'll be a wrap as always. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comments and thumbs up are appreciated. And we'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.